Of Q broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography destroys. It weakens your spirit. It dulls your drive. And it robs you of what real intimacy is supposed to be. Every click is a step away from the man you're supposed to be. We can't call ourselves leaders if we are slaves to a screen.
As someone that is prior service, I know all about discipline. And discipline isn't out there, it's within your mind. Porn rewires your brain, weakens your will, wrecks all of your relationships. It doesn't just stay on a screen, it invades your marriage, your confidence, and your actual purpose. As men, if we don't learn to discipline ourselves, we'll be ruled by our impulses. Now, it is time to stand up and take control before this silent war takes more than you're willing to lose.
Real men don't hide in the shadows of shame. We step up and we protect what's ours. We fight for our wives and kids, our own hearts. Twitter isn't just an app, it's a weapon. It's a tool used to break free and start living like the man that you're meant to be. The battle's here and it starts with you. You can stop living in shame and you can break free today.
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely leaving your home, working, and social interactions. In exchange for safety, we will trade liberty. At the Anomic Age, we understand. However, just in case you want to get off your knees and stop being a sniveling coward, check out the John Age Project at anomicage.com.
Meet Ann Morrissey, who is here with her daughter, Dareth. Dareth is 17 years old. Ms. Mrs. Morrissey, I don't have to tell you that most parents would be extremely depressed if their daughter came home one day looking like this. I assume that was your response shock, anger, depression? What was it?
I was extremely angry. I really went bananas.
Yeah, how old was she when this happened?
Possibly 13, 14 years old.
We're talking like it's a disease, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah. How did she explain it to you, Mrs. Morrison?
there was very poor communication until we went into counseling. And it almost broke up our family. But through counseling and Serena, I can understand it better.
What do you understand?
That she feels like she doesn't want to be like everyone else, and she wants to be her own person. And through the dress code and her lifestyle, she's expressing this. It doesn't conform with our rules, but we're learning to cope, and it's a very, very difficult thing. Extremely difficult.
Derek, let's let you talk for yourself. You're from Long Beach, California.
I just can't handle being like everybody else because that's what everybody else wants, you know. Just because somebody else does something does not mean that I have to do it. You know, I have my own morals and ideals, and I go by them.
Are you drug-free, Dara?
Yes, I am.
Is this a political statement then? Do you have some misgiving about the society that you see?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems, you know. A lot of the people are really aware of what's going on, you know, and I don't like it, you know. There's a lot of problems. I don't like the way society is based.
What bothers you? Give us some of the misgivings you have.
The rich, the poor, the people starving, the wars, you know. Why can't, you know, everybody just get along and just live their life?
You know something is wrong, and it's time to stand up. You are listening to the John Age Show.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age. And I'm your host, John Age. Happy to be back with you once again in the not-so-wee hours of the PM. I'll be your tour guide this afternoon as we take a somewhat satirical journey down the path of murder, destruction, mayhem, and the extermination of human life on this planet. A forced march into obsolescence thrust upon us by a global satanic death cult of pedophiles. Please check out anomicage.com if you've not already done so. It looks a little like this. You'll find all the shows there, the full shows like this one with our guests. You'll see the shorter, like 30-minute segments that I do throughout the week. I just refer to them as the information breakdown segments. All the video, all the audio. PayPal.me/anomicage, Patreon.com/anomicage as well. Got the iPhone app, Android app. Subscribe by newsletter. Free newsletter. You got it all there at anomicage.com. So please check that out. Also, if you are so inclined, that is, we got a great guest back with us today, thankfully. We've got none other than Celia Farber with us today. Celia Farber is an investigative journalist, author of 3 books, including Serious Adverse Events, An Uncensored History of AIDS. She's been very well published in Harper's Bazaar, Esquire, Rolling Stone, and so many more. Best place to find her, celiafarber.substack.com. You're seeing that on your screen right there. It says The Truth Barrier. That's going to be the title there, but celiafarber.substack.com. All those are available in the link section as well. Thank you so much, Celia, for making the time with us today.
Thank you, John. Good to be back. Nice to see you.
Definitely. It's always such a pleasure.
Lots to talk about as ever. Wow. Things just get stranger and stranger, don't they?
They sure do. Absolutely. And it's always such a pleasure to talk with you as well. I'm not blowing smoke at you there. It's always fun to talk with you. You've always got so much to bring to the table, and there's never a shortage. I keep thinking maybe one day, we'll all get to retire and sail off into the sunset, but it doesn't look like that anytime soon because, every day there's about 30 different topics we can talk about.
Yeah, well, for all of us who are, I suppose there's a small minority, by some accounts, it's said to be less than about a third of the population that are more or less completely programmed and brainwashed. Pretty much everybody else is in this reign of shock and awakening and researching, and it's become our lives now, just trying to fathom the horror show. Nobody knows what to do. Do you unhook from it? Do you look away?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do much about it, but wow. I feel like it's gotten worse in the last 6 months than it's ever been. Maybe even 3 months.
Yeah.
That's not to say I think that darkness is winning and light is losing. What I mean is the actual insanity of it is so much more. There's no reference point anymore to Western civilization or its values.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't know about you, but I mean, I think I always need time to detox from this stuff. Like every few weeks, I feel like even if it's just a few days, I'm going to cut all the stuff off and just not do it. But at the same time, I come back feeling guilty. Like, oh my gosh, I've let everybody down for 48 hours. I haven't covered this stuff. Haven't talked about it, but I mean, it's so dark. I mean, I feel like I need a shower or something after just covering so much of this stuff, like an emotional, physio-emotional sort of shower from this mess,
Yeah, and I remember all my life I wondered about the people, primarily sorry, that's my cat. Lewis, come on in. Come in, Lewis. Okay. Where suddenly they lived under murderous tyranny. The Jews in Germany and Europe, the Russian people after the Bolshevik Revolution, et cetera, et cetera. What was that like? I used to think it was so incomprehensible. What would that be like to know that you were stuck inside borders where the regime is trying to kill you? I couldn't wrap my head around it. And now we have our version of it. But it's matrixy because one minute you can look out the window or go to the store and everything looks kind of quote unquote normal. But as soon as you peer into the portal, you're in hell, So I think that the new thing is to try to understand that you mentioned Marshall McLuhan earlier before the show started. So he said the medium is the message most famously. You know a lot more about him than I do, but I feel like that's our big struggle, all of us right now. What happens to me if I look at it? What happens to me if I don't look at it?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do about it if I look at it? What do I do about it if I write about it, talk about it, expose it? Then what? What happens? And the devastation is so far nothing. None of these mutilating doctors have been arrested. None of the architects of the COVID mass murder have been arrested. I'm not intending to speak defeatism here, just speaking to the exhaustion of this moment,
Yeah, I kind of got familiar with this black pill term about 6 or 8 months ago. I didn't even realize what that was. And then I realized that's just who I've always been. Like I've always been a little bit dark side of the force, and I wouldn't even call it pessimistic, but just realistic. You know, I look at the same stuff as you do, and I'm like, okay, here's another laundry list of, at the very least, criminals, you know, in the lightest sense of the term, that should be taken out of office, jailed, if not executed for their crimes, and nothing's going on. It's just sort of business as usual. I mean, we've got this dark reality that you and I and people that know this stuff realize, and then it's sort of juxtaposed next to this, you know, I use this term, but it's not accurate. This Ozzie and Harriet, everything's okay. Just watch your device, eat your Netflix, have some GMO. It's all fine. What are you talking about? You know, like we put on those They Live glasses and we see the reality of it. And then, you know, we have to interact with so many people that are just on a totally different mindset or reality.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, just a different reality now.
Right. The normalization of the extreme pedophilic, like that fusion where trans culture meets daycare culture, or
yeah,
there's not even a template anywhere in history that I know of to sort of deal with this, like what it is. It's so very, very alien. Certain things, of course, can be traced, and we know their plan and the NWO and everything they've been saying for decades. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to. But I feel like the trans op or the trans Inc. is it's harder to deal with because it's so incomprehensibly strange and unexpected. We're, like global warming, we know their rap, we know their brainwashing, we know how they operate, we understand Greta Thunberg, we get it. But my goodness, when I started looking into Trans Inc., I was aware of it, well aware of it. But what I mean is you go even a little bit granular into, and even if you just Google gender surgery, a simple term like that, and you get hundreds of pictures that are each one individually so unbelievably troubling, devastating to look at. And so when I started writing about it, I told my readers at my Substack, be warned, I'm not putting the images up. You can click here, but, you know, be warned. And a lot of people said I chose not to click.
Yeah.
And these are what we used to call ordinary Americans who went through medical school, who are doing this. So something's happened to their consciousness. The only thing I can come up with is not original, but woke as a malicious, diabolical, destructive parasite that makes people insane if they get infected with it.
That's definitely the way I've looked at it too. It's a mental, spiritual, and just, it's a cultural infection that just seems to be taking over these different sects of the population. And for folks like you and I don't mean this to demean anybody that has PTSD associated with violence or rape or abuse or military service, but I mean, I feel a degree, however small compared to that, of just PTSD with this stuff sometimes, because just by the nature of the research that we do, we're bombarded with just darkness, like the ghastliest stuff. I mean, I got to be serious. I've got the Finders documents talking about the pedophilic stuff there.
Yeah,
I've had that on my computer for like a year and a half and still have not gotten through all of it, because I just read a little bit, put it down, come back to it in 3 months, read a little bit, put it down. Yep. It's just so dark.
I got into the Finders a few years ago. I read the whole thing. And interestingly, John Cohen, you may not know that name, John Cohen, Joncohen, he was one of the lead propagandists for AIDS Inc. in Nature magazine. So every time they put out a new part of their PSYOP, it was a John Cohen piece. So he was just a major party line science writer, and still is. And he did this massive piece that was funded by a journalism organization about the Finders. I could send this to you later.
Okay.
And what do you think it is? It is a whitewash.
Yeah.
With a little bit of, I guess I would say, you could, their technique is write about it in such a way that you float the negative that a normal person thinks looking at this, and then start to complicate it by saying, however, it wasn't necessarily this, it wasn't necessarily that, so that people actually don't believe their own eyes and ears. Do you know what I mean? So that piece, I just kind of wondered, this guy he was never one of the vicious ones. He was just party line, all the way, right? And we know what the media really is composed of. We all know now. Anyone who has a very successful career, we get the joke, right? But this investigative journalism organ that funded that research piece, and this thing is long, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you brought it up. I've been wanting to talk to somebody about this whole John Cohen Finders thing. I'm just saying there's something there. There's something there.
So John Cohen, was he an investigative journalist or?
Yeah, so he's a science reporter, very mainstream, very orthodox. Like when we found out in the beginning of COVID that Cliff Lane had been told at the airport, presumably by Fauci, to go to China. You're flying to China. Here's your ticket. You're going to China. Cliff Lane goes to China. He's an AIDS guy. He's been under Fauci like a lackey. He goes to China and he comes back huffing and puffing breathlessly about the Chinese. So it wasn't just him. It was 13 international public health agents who were taken on the CCP tour of early COVID and sold, like they're being sold a new perfume or something, sold on how China is handling COVID, and they come back and seed it here. So John Cohen wrote about that, just to give you one example.
Mm-hmm.
He's the Pravda of all public health, AIDS, COVID, everything, vaccines, but he's not an attack dog, and he's not a bad writer either. And he's not, I would say, utterly pernicious like Laurie Garrett or Michael Spector, to name a couple. Now, what I'm trying to say is, you brought up the Finders, and I think that is a target. When we say we're over the target, that's one of those stories where if we could understand the Finders, we could understand a lot.
Yeah. And that's what's so troubling to me oftentimes is there's these events from like 20 years ago that people have just sort of swept under the rug. And I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the people associated with it have retired, died, or just don't want to get the blowback. So it's just sort of like, hey, there's this weird spike in what it was, 1989 or 88 or what have you. And then it's like dead silence. And then we finally released the white papers and heavily redacted government docs on it. And everybody's kind of like, what do we do with this? Like, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, I've looked at the white papers and the redacted stuff, or tried to. I say I've tried to because it just gets so disturbing when you look at the kids and,
I'll send you the John Cohen piece, because it's hard for me sometimes to articulate what I mean. Here's what I mean.
Yeah.
Was a time, and this is sometime in the 80s, when a front group calling itself a Center for Investigative Journalism paid John Cohen a big grant to do a massive piece on this, which when I read that piece, I got very disturbed, because it was a simultaneous detail and admit it happened and then neutralize it and whitewash it.
Yeah.
And I only knew him as an AIDS propagandist at a very high level. I want to say, I'm sorry, I said Nature. I'm sorry, I think I mean Science magazine.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should know. Which one was he, Nature or Science? Okay. Sorry, everyone. One of those.
I'm looking at it while we're talking, so go for it.
Okay. You found the piece I'm talking about? It's on his.
It says Science. Yeah. John Cohen, AAS, AAA Science. Yeah.
Go to his website.
Okay.
We're doing this like real time. It was one of those things. I put it aside and I said, I want to write about this, but I don't know how. Why would he put that piece on his website? Are you on his website?
I'm looking at his bio at science.org right now. Good John Cohen, BA in science from Writing University of California, San Diego. I can't find his actual site, like his personal site, but
Try johncohen.com or .org.
okay.
JONCOHEN.
This is somebody else, I believe.
Okay. I'll find it later.
Okay.
But the FBI agent who was the really heroic whistleblower, why is his name escaping me now? You know who I mean? There's an FBI agent who blew the whistle, was telling the whole country. I don't know if his videos are still online, but he is where I feel this whole story needs to begin with all of his lectures.
Yeah, I do. I can't think of his name, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know who I mean, right?
Yeah.
I actually find it a little strange that I can't remember his name because I know his name so well. But at the moment, I'm experiencing mental exhaustion. So
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of his name either, but I know.
Wait a minute. We got to think of his name. I bet some of your listeners are screaming at the screen.
Yeah, please send me an email about this.
I can see him in front of me, you know.
Because he was like the head of the California FBI office, I believe.
Mm-hmm. The McMartin case.
Yeah, the McMartin preschool. Ted Gunderson?
Ted Gunderson.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned the McMartin thing because I was going to link that into this. I mean, that's another one of those cases that I think was so whitewashed. And I was going to throw in, you know, the whole satanic panic of the 70s and 80s. If you read any social science, academia, cult journal on this, it's going to say, oh, it was this overreaction from these crazy Christians. They thought there was all this Satanism and pedophilia and child abuse. And whoo, boy, were they nuts. You know, like that's the whitewash, which I think is something akin to John Cohen's work that you're mentioning.
That's actually a very brilliant whitewash. And I worked at Spin a long time ago, as you know, so Spin was a slightly infanterie, counterculture magazine. And I can remember all of these ideas washing over the editorial atmosphere all the time. The crazy Christians and the crazy Christians who said that rock and roll was devil music, which I kind of agree with now. I still like some of it that I grew up on, but it's going to take such a long time. Like sometimes when I think about everything I was programmed with.
Yes.
In fact, I wrote about this the other day, but I never ran this piece. It was, what's his name? Paul Stanley from KISS. He came out again, and he said, please, parents, don't think, this is so many levels of irony, and if it weren't so hideous, it would be like dark black humor. But he said, your child playing dress up doesn't mean it's time for gender surgery.
Yeah.
So this guy is like one of the most famous dress up rock stars in the history of everything. The whole thing was KISS, dress up, costume, haha. I don't know what happened to him after he came out, but I thought that was significant enough that I picked up on that and wrote a piece about it. And the piece that I didn't run was I was reflecting on being maybe 8 or 9, maybe 9 years old, still living in the States. We hadn't moved to Sweden yet. Your listeners don't know, but my mom was Swedish. We moved to Sweden at age 11. But prior to that, so my sister, 2 years older, was getting into all the good, which records and which bands. And so she had a copy of Kiss Alive, which is a very iconic album. I don't know if you had it.
I think I had Alive too. I didn't have the original Alive one.
Okay.
But yeah.
But I remember, the way we did, well, I don't know if you remember these days, but like an album cover was a kind of trance state or spell. And you just,
yes, because you would look at every single little detail and go,
Yeah.
oh, what's that word in the shirt the girl's holding up in the back? Like all those little details. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a medium or something.
Absolutely, it was.
And it was wasn't just the music, it was the cover. And that cover had me, I experienced a deep fear that I would be made to go to a Kiss concert and that I would be killed.
Mm-hmm.
I saw those images. Let's say I was 8, right? And I thought, people die at these concerts because there was the fire and Gene Simmons with demonic. So I was not old enough to separate between, that's like performative and there's some inside joke. That I didn't get that. I just saw this really scary demon man and I thought, oh no, someone's going to make me go to a Kiss concert and I'm going to die. Like I know I was a nervous child for many reasons, but
Oh yeah, I can relate.
Now,
absolutely.
It's like, it was satanic imagery, symbolism, idea, whatever the words are for this stuff. It was satanic. The crazy Christians were right.
Yes. I think that's so true. I was talking with another journalist, John Waters in Ireland a couple weeks ago. We sort of got off on this same, well, not the same, but very similar, how we sort of would analyze the album art and the inside, what do you want to call it? The lyric sheet, if you will. Yeah, all that stuff, and there's something to that is so, it's tactile. It's something that you hold and look at, which I think is vastly missing from today's music. But, it transports you to a different place. It absolutely will cause different feelings, different, visceral emotions. I mean, I can remember specifically all these different punk shows that I went to years ago. And it was kind of like what you were saying. It was something so electric to it. In anthropology, there's a term called communitas, with rites of passage, where you go from one rite into another. But in that communitas stage, everybody's equal and everybody's sort of this amalgamation of synergy, if you will. So, I remember those shows and being like pressed up down front and all that craziness. And I remember these two emotions because it was so electrifying and I was so happy, but at the same time, like gasping for breath. I just got kicked in the head and going, I can't wait for this to end, while simultaneously, this is the greatest thing ever. It's these two emotions that are just
this
binary.
Is the first I've ever talked about this, but I was also a mosh pit, kid in Sweden. We got the punk and later post-punk was just appearing at the time. So we're talking about, let's 1980, 81, 82. So like punk proper.
Yeah, that was the good stuff. I missed all that.
But it was like punk, post-punk. So when we had this rock club that we had, or other people before us had occupied is the word, occupied from the local government in this city in Sweden called Örebro. So the progressive hippies and then later the punks came together to take over this property in the middle of the town that had been an old shoe factory. And there we had a very idyllic, I have to say, rock club that we ran. Everything was anarchist, vegetarian restaurant, theater groups. This is where I learned to play drums, because before I became a journalist, I was a drummer. I was never going to be a drummer for a living, but I was a drummer for like 16 years in rock. Wow. So rock played a very big formative role in my life. But at that place, it was the mosh pit. And I remember very similar feelings, like this ecstatic release from whatever. It was just happy. I thought those were the happiest times of my life, sort of. And I still do in a way, But when I think about what was going on and what were the values, why were we shaving our heads or dyeing our hair all kinds of colors? And it was very gender bendy then too. Like my boyfriend during those years, he wore more makeup than I did. And we sort of dyed our hair the identical bright neon orange color. And I was just in heaven. And we were so tight. Now all of us were like, we were like one organism, you know. That's actually my rooster you're hearing.
That's all right.
I have rescued a rooster a couple months ago, and his name is Pushkin. Okay, Pushkin, you've been introduced to the world. Would you like to address the nation? You hear him?
I love it.
I don't have chickens, by the way. I only have a rooster. I'm just saying.
That's all right.
So either I'm going to keep going and get chickens, or it's possible I have somebody very interesting who I won't mention yet, but who might adopt Pushkin, a writer, and a historian who I admire very much, who knows about Pushkin. Anyway, okay, sorry, digressing. Where were we? Yeah, so punk. Just being this kind of blank slate and doing all the things that the culture dictated. But at the time, we didn't feel like there was any big machine. There was no mass media. We picked up from continental Europe what the ideas were. You know, women can play instruments. Women were supposed to be very masculine, tomboyish, not accentuate femininity, but be really tough, like, you know, like the mods.
Yeah,
sort of
it's like that Susie and the Banshees and Joan Jett sort of ethos, I think, infiltrated that.
We were supposed to be these kind of very tough birds, you know?
Yeah.
And what did that mean? Where did that come from? Where did it leave us? I never thought of punk as much as one of the psyops, but maybe it was.
I don't know. That's something I really want to look into further. Maybe I'll get to do that this summer. But, you know, I keep thinking about so much of that Sex Pistols, you know, how did that just spring up and then become a transcontinental global phenomenon? And I'm not necessarily calling out John Lydon or even the players in the band, but I'm just saying, like, you know, how did this?
Well, I actually have a super obscure thread on this. I'm glad you brought that up.
Please do.
I told everybody this. I was in London, I want to say 89-ish. And I have a friend in London. His name is Jad Adams. He actually wrote the very first HIV dissent book in maybe in the world. It's called The HIV Myth.
Mm-hmm.
He's a historian, and he called me up and he said, Celia, my neighbor is the original bass player for the Sex Pistols. Here we go with names again. Mm-hmm. And he maintains that he wrote all the songs. Would you like, because I work for Rock Magazine, would you like to talk to him? I said, yeah. He came over for tea. Oh God, this is so mortifying that I don't remember his name. All right.
I can look it up while we're talking if you want.
Yeah, would you? Bass player. And, you know, he kind of was on the outs. I suppose he was displaced by Sid Vicious.
I got Glenn Matlock as a bass player. I don't know if that's the original bass player, though. I believe
it was Glenn. Was he displaced by Sid Vicious?
I believe it says was an English musician best known for being the bassist, original lineup of the punk rock band, the Sex Pistols. Yeah, he had to have been. Yep.
And Matlock, that was him.
Because they put Sid in there as just sort of a placeholder, I think.
Names, but that was him. And he was very thorough and intelligent. And, you know, and I walked away. I don't remember what happened with that story. I don't know if we ever ran with it, but I was persuaded. Yeah, this guy wrote all those songs and I like John Lydon. He's been a real whistleblower, you know, do you know that he blew the whistle on
Yeah.
The gigantic pedophile at the BBC, that guy.
The Top of the Pops guy.
Deviled by names today in this show.
That's all right. I feel you. The Top of the Pops guy. God, what was his name? Jimmy Savile.
Yeah.
I've got the same problem, so it's all right. Jimmy Savile, yeah. He blew the Islam in like the 70s. He kind of came out and said, yeah, this guy's trouble.
From the BBC. Again, with the whitewash, right? Because now it's like, oh, yeah, he was a pedophile, maybe a necrophiliac too. He abused hundreds of children, but we're making a documentary about it, so it's all good.
Yes.
It's so astounding how they do that. How they do the whitewashes. Never any. Imagine being in a position like that where there's just never, and then this is it's getting really hard. It's getting really hard that these people, we don't see any blowback to them. It's getting really hard. I don't mean spiritually. I don't mean when their day comes and all of that. I just mean the feeling that there's just no justice down here.
Yeah, because I mean, all these whitewashes sort of parallel, your work with the HIV expose, as well as, juxtapose that to the COVID. Same thing. We have this big whitewash of, oh yeah, that AZT might have been a little bad. There's like thousands of kids involved in these, vastly undocumented, unsanctioned studies. Whoops. Oh, well,
It's like, they're like historic bombs that are diffused. They sort of go off, but not really. And then you look at something like the history of,
for nearly 150 years.
The Bolshevik history is also like that. USSR, Soviet history. It's a bit like, yeah, well, there's that same sense of perpetual whitewash, and that only really unsophisticated people work themselves into a lather about the communist history. Because the PSYOP here, I've been writing about this lately, and this goes without saying, but the American PSYOP was that only unwashed, kind of like the MAGA PSYOP, unwashed rubes who have xenophobic, the anti-communist, the McCarthy set, that only those kinds of people were paranoid about communism, that there was a communist in every office. And there was, it was worse.
And they draw those perfect little boxes for everyone. I mean, the media, that's who I mean by they. So the proverbial the media will put these lovely little boxes and say, oh, well, if you dare question elections, vaccines, illegal immigration, like there's only two camps. You can't just be, hey, this is wrong. It's either you're Maoist or Hitlerian somehow. And they can't seem to reconcile that it's kind of both sides of the same coin. But
if there is one big gigantic brush or that binds everything together on the evil side, I would say it's woke, but it's an insufficient word by the light year, but it's still the only word we have. Woke is what makes it all possible.
Yeah, because you've got to conform or die. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. You either buy into this or you're persona non grata forever, from family, from community, from country, virtually. I mean, it's just, that's where we are.
Yeah. I think that for a little bit of good news, what I see, I don't know if you see the same thing, but there is actual push through and push back on trans from celebrities, from the street, from people, from culture. People are no longer completely terrified to say anything about it. It's breaking up a little bit. It's coming through.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important is, actually, John Rappaport wrote, I think it's his piece today, where he said, this is what, and I reposted it, what a political campaign should look like. And he's talking about Ben Carson going into hideous surgical detail about what goes on with these surgeries. And John was making the excellent point, this is what we need to, what needs to happen in the political sphere. No euphemism, no platitudes, just basically images showing people what's going on in this country. It's almost like shock therapy that we need.
Yeah, I think we need sort of like the inversion of the Naomi Klein shock doctrine. We need to sort of remix this into our own shock doctrine of like, look, this is the diary from Biden's daughter. Is that a little disturbing to anybody but me? Like these are the visuals of these procedures where you've got muscle and tissue removed in order to make a false parts. It's just so demented. I mean, if we juxtapose this and put it in like a Nazi context from 80 years ago, it'd be like, oh my gosh, Mengele was a horrible guy. And then I think we should do that. Maybe we should put some of these images and write-ups and say, look, this is Mengele. And then, reveal this is actually 2023, like the United States.
Yeah, and it's irreversible, of course.
Yeah.
And let's just say it. Let's choose the right words. It's state-sanctioned, medical-sanctioned amputations of healthy human parts. Healthy human, what's the right word? Parts of a human.
Yes.
And the thought that medicine would do that, where you can show up and say, could you chop this off for me? And they would say, sure. No, it goes the other way around. They're like, calling the parents, you're going to lose custody if you don't. I mean, I wrote about this recently. There was a father who the son was depressed from lockdown. A lot of this has to do with lockdown. The children went into depressions during lockdown, very understandably. I think that's an underestimated story. I used to think about it a lot, how awful it would have been lockdown to be a child, to be a teenager, to be we all remember, how we felt then, to not be able to see your friends, to not be able to go to school, to not be, it's really serious trauma, what they did to the kids, right? And so then they had them online, depressed, thinking of more and more extreme ways to kind of escape this depression. So this one man took his son, I think they were an Indian family, and he took his son to the hospital because the son was suicidal. I don't know how old the boy was, but young. He was, but he was not, he was, I feel like I want to say 12, but could have been a little older. And the boy was left at the hospital, the wing of a hospital where you would go if you were suicidal, like some kind of lockdown, psychiatric. And they contacted the parents and they said, your son is depressed because he's really a girl. And we're starting we're starting hormone therapy, this is what it is. And this man was smart enough to go right along with it, to say all the right things. And then he got his son out of there and took the whole family and left the state, went somewhere else. And the boy reconnected with his studies. He was always a good student and didn't want to be a girl anymore. I don't, if ever he did, but they actually get them under conditions of psychological duress, and they implant this idea.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a girl.
I think there's so much psychosis that we could sort of look through as it pertains to the COVID psyop and the lockdowns and the masks and everything else. But I mean, I always come back to this. Albert Bitterman, who was a psychologist, came up with the Bitterman coercion chart. He was, I think it first got published at a conference in 59 or something, and then used by the Army. And then, it surfaced again in Guantanamo, long story short. But it's basically shows how to break a criminal or a prisoner, as it were. He was looking at POWs in the Korean War that were returning, I think, primarily Air Force POWs, but it was this whole sort of list of how you break an individual, you break their psyche, and it's all step by step what went on with the COVID psyop. It's isolation. Wow. It's a panopticon of only one opinion matters. it's trivial tasks like putting on a mask and walking in a stupid line and all this sort of just psyop stuff that you don't think of while it's going on. And you read this chart and you're like, holy cow, that's what they did to everybody for years, or those people that went along with the gag. And you look at the children, I think they're the most susceptible, because out of everybody, that's who I see wearing the mask still. Like if I go out in public, there's some adults wearing it, but especially the adolescents, they still got their mask on. I drive by bus stops, they still got their masks on and they're playing with their phone. I'm just going, that was the hook.
It's like a vestigial, is it called vestigial? Like a vestigial part of their face.
Yeah.
I think that has to do with augmentation and transhumanism. And the mask is kind of part of this extended part of the human body now.
Yeah. And
I saw that happening.
And it becomes their safety blanket. It's like the binky for like a toddler or something, except now we have, adolescents and young adults with still like, there's something all psychological about that, where they're sort of clinging to that security, or at least that false sense of security that they felt during the PSYOP, because everybody told them this will save you. It's going to be okay. Just keep your blanket with you,
Right. Amazing. I remember being on a plane once next to somebody during pretty much the peak of COVID. I was flying to Tulsa and back. I think it was on the way back. And this woman, we chatted as the plane, landed. And she said she'd been visiting her daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren. And she was on the West Coast. And she seemed pretty into her mask. So I figured she was, didn't have the positions or thoughts or feelings about it all that I did. So she was mostly talking and I was mostly listening. And she talked about how the children were with their masks, right? And I said something like, well, it's not good for children. I sort of was saying something, pushing back a little bit. And she raised her voice and she got very intense and she said, oh no, the children love their masks. They love wearing them. They ask to wear them. And I just, pulled back like, all right. And I just thought, you're out of your mind, but I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Like, what a dreadful thing for a grandmother to partake in. Oh, they love it. They want it. They ask for their masks, she said. Like if the family was going to a restaurant or wherever, they'd be like, where's my, but so I think that's part of being a child that has to do with this deep child's instinct to display to the adults a kind of conformity that can be translated into safety.
Yeah.
Like the child just wants to display for the adults. It's like a feedback loop.
Yeah. They want that parental approval.
Love me. Don't abandon me. I don't want to be in trouble.
Yep.
I think just like you do,
And sadly, I mean, I hate to connect it back to that darkness, but I think it's a grooming aspect of this whole thing. Because, I mean, societally, I think we were all sort of groomed, obviously present company excluded, from going along with this gag. It was like, okay, just a couple weeks, just a couple more days, just the mask, just the line, just the vaccine. And it's just really sick incrementalism of the same sort of psychology you see with groomers, where they just start patting the kid on the back, and before you know it, it just gets worse and worse. And then you've got that Stockholm syndrome of the victim going, well, wait a minute, this is my whole reality now. This is my parental caregiver that told me this is what I should do. And now they feel that Stockholm syndrome to the abuser, which is so sick.
I feel so heartbroken for the children. So hard. It's sort of like that feeling where you can begin to imagine what people went through, but you can't fully have the download of what they went through. But there's something about the children that it's just like we don't know a fraction of this is about these spectral virus, pandemic, fake plagues, and all the rest. They create so much pain and horror that is mostly bloodless.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't see the skulls piled up, and you don't hear the screams and the gas chambers. It's this really sinister, invisible, demonic force that gets into everything. And sometimes the tiniest thing can be just as tragic and devastating as I guess what I'm saying is former totalitarianism systems. They killed a person in the body. The body was killed. And this time they're just snuffing out everything that makes life worth living, and going into our minds and snuffing out our hopes. And you remember when Fauci got on TV and said something about Thanksgiving or 4th of July, and Americans weren't even supposed to want to have a barbecue anymore. Like, if you were a good American, you didn't want to get together.
And that's right out of the Bitterman coercion chart. One of the tenets of it is occasional indulgences. So if you're a good little boy and girl, you'll get to go to 4th of July. You just got to wear your mask and walk in a line and hop on one foot and everything. And I love what you said. It's so connective. I'm sorry, but
no, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I love what you're saying there about the internalization of this. And I see this as just sort of like cultural scars. So, I mean, it's one thing if you just shoot somebody in the back of the head at the edge of a pit, they're gone. Their legacy is in essence gone. But I think the cultural scars of this are so much more telling because, as we know, like, so much is cyclical, whether it's abuse or alcoholism or just our thought processes. So as we see this next generation begin to have children, they're going to pass on those cultural scars of the PSYOP 19, you know? So they're going to pass on those evils, if you will, to their generations, which is just even more telling.
I know they planned it for a very long time, but once they launched it, once the big beast came out, right? And I suppose it was March 2020. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
I wonder if they knew exactly what their Frankenstein beast would do, or if part of it was kind of an experiment to see what would happen. As long as I live, I'll never understand how they knew that people would become the beast like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's such intense choreography and mind control. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I think there's so much to this. And I've talked about this before, where I think it's a spiritual thing almost. It's one thing to force someone to do something, and it's something else for them to consent to it. It's kind of like that Bundy thing where he entices the girl to help him in her own demise. Like, oh, I just need help with these groceries. And now you're tied up in a basement somewhere, but you kind of did it to yourself. No one put the gun to your head and said, take this vaccine. They got the willing consent of the masses to go along with their own execution.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this book. It's a classic, and it's incredible. The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker.
I don't. That sounds interesting.
Oh boy. And I call Gavin de Becker, he's a patron saint to women, in that the book is about the instinct that he's not just speaking to women, but primarily the instinct that women have, that we all have, which is very finely tuned. Something doesn't feel right about that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to step into this elevator. He says that listen to that. That's what the gift of fear means. But what happens to most of us is there's another voice that overrides it, which almost could be called a little bit woke, maybe. Like, I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to be the kind of person who won't get into an elevator with a strange man. I don't want to, that's all. It's not exactly, but it's kind of like, we're animals, and we're telling ourselves. And he said, what other living being mammal gets into a steel cage with another, creature that we don't know if that creature wants to hurt us or not, and the doors are going to lock, and now we're in the steel cage together. There's no animal that would do that. There's no creature that would do that. So we're these creatures who are already mediated to not even protect ourselves.
That sounds fascinating.
He tells the story of a woman in the beginning of the book. She comes home and it's the groceries, and there's a guy in the stairwell. Let me help you with that, because some cat food drops out of the bag. And she says, I'm good. And he's charming. He's good looking. And he wants to help her with the groceries. She says, no, I'm good. And he's talking, he's making jokes. He's talking about her cats, blah, blah, blah. He's wearing her down, and he's waiting for the moment when she says, okay, you can carry my groceries. And she says no a lot. And this is a true story. And he gets into her apartment with these grocery bags and rapes her, violent rape, and goes to the kitchen to get a knife. She wraps a sheet around herself and walks right behind him. He doesn't somehow know she's there. She gets out. She saves her life. She goes to the neighbor. And his story, just right there, what Gavin de Becker is talking about is that, first of all, she knew as soon as she heard his voice. She knew there was something about him. It didn't feel right. So that's why she's saying, no, thank you. No, thank you. I'm good. But he wears her down. That's what predators do. Yeah. But then also her instinct told her, put the sheet and just go right behind him, right? He could have just turned around and killed her, but she did that. And afterwards she said, I have no idea where I found the courage, how I thought of that. So this is what's so key about Gavin de Becker's work. He's saying, people, we have it in us, all of that. We know exactly when we're in danger. But like what you were talking about, the COVID thing, this overriding spell tells us, oh, I don't want to be the blah, 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 and I don't want to. So it's all about being separated from our instincts. Thinking the more I separate from my instincts, the more I'll be thought of as good. Like the woman with the groceries and the rapist, like, oh, I don't want to be rude to this nice man. Yeah. In a way, it's similar stories. COVID and the gift of fear, Gavin, the book is full of stories like that. It feels like it's a similar kind of dialectic in that it's all about people being made to be ashamed of their instincts and their inner voice. Because what kind of person are you? It's like the crazy Christian thing.
Yes.
Oh, you think that there were preschools that were involved in satanic pedophilia? What kind of person are you? And then everyone was, oh, I don't want to be that kind of person.
Yep.
So what do we do about this stuff? I just think it comes down to getting less dependent upon the fear of what other people think about you.
I think that's so elemental with this whole thing. And I've sort of by accident talked to so many people, and I don't know if this is an accurate parallel or not, but I swear I think there's something to, I'd say it was like the refugees from counterculture. I had no idea you used to be into punk and hardcore and all that stuff, but I've talked to so many people that I would have never guessed it. I talked to them on the show and they're like, yeah, I used to be into all that stuff. And I think there's something to being a refugee from that culture where you kind of realize, you don't have to fall in line, but then you sort of also realize, that counterculture was somewhat of a bunch of mess, at the same time. So if we could take the positive elements from that and then go forward, it's kind of like, yeah, of course I'm not going to wear a mask. Like, what part of me ever would make you think I'm going to fall in line with that kind of stuff,
Well, I think I'm a refugee from counterculture of my own counter, the punk stuff and the rock stuff. But and before punk, it was like Black Sabbath and all that, you know. And I think the punk thing is the only one where I'm still puzzling over it, because the big idea of punk, you know, it was different in America and Europe. I know America was more the Ramones and Iggy Pop, and in Europe it was like really the Sex Pistols were that was the pinnacle album. To get back to the Sex Pistols and this wild conversation. And the ideas expressed there, even as I listen to them today, I can sort of tunnel back in my memory to being that young person thinking in terms of rebellion, because it was a rebellious album, in that it was rebelling against things that were not so clear on the album, but one could feel it. But I thought we were inventing our own counterculture. So I thought, because we didn't have channels and fancy clubs or, you know, it was like, I told you, we occupied the space. Like my boyfriend at the time, he made his first guitar in the wood shop. People were even making, it was really DIY punk, really, because it was just, we were in the middle of nowhere. No, we didn't have, that culture wasn't, and it was a socialist country, more or less. So, and that's like if you talk to people who grew up behind the Iron Curtain, they will speak very differently of rock and roll. They will say it was directly connected to my opposition to communist tyranny. The fact that I listened to The Clash or Frank Sinatra, for that matter, right? That music, you know, it's like a flipped story. In the West, I think the music was maybe mostly corrosive or decadent. But where people were living in tyranny, it was liberating.
Absolutely. Well, I know I've kept you over your time, and I'm sorry. I'll close it right now. What's the best place people can find you, Celia? We got to do this more often. I swear we could talk for 3 shows on this whole thing.
Yeah, I'll come back and talk to you anytime, John. I'm sorry, Louis, you have to be quiet because I'm going to promote my Substack now, okay? So, and my book.
Indeed.
I wish I had it to hold up. There's my book. I have many copies, but I don't have any right here. Anyway, so, okay, my Substack is celiafarber.substack.com. And my book is available on Amazon and at chelseagreen.com, Serious Adverse Events, and Uncensored History of AIDS. It's a reissue of a book that first came out in 2006.
Indeed. Well, I got to have you back on just to talk about that by itself. I swear, we could always talk about this stuff. I love talking to you, Celia. No,
listen, John, in all seriousness, like you just opened up all these new windows in my mind about things I never put it together like this quite before. And this isn't the stuff I usually talk about, but I want to talk about it. I want to go all the way back and talk about it. It started to happen when I saw that Paul Stanley thing, and I started to remember the trauma of the Kiss Alive album cover. And what was that? You know, and it's easy to dismiss all your weird thoughts and weird fragmented childhood memories, but maybe they're important.
I think maybe it's like what you said a moment ago. Maybe it's just that sort of discernment that told you this was evil. I mean, it's not as vanilla and just pop as Kiss is. I'm not suggesting they're death metal, black, you know, whatever. But, you know, I feel like that resonance of that's evil versus good, you know. So I don't want to get sued by Gene Simmons, but yeah.
That Kiss is evil. Like, why don't we think that Kiss is evil? Is it because the songs were good?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think The Who was evil. I'm a big Who fan.
Yeah.
I interviewed Pete Townsend in 1993. He was wonderful. I love The Who. I actually think the Beatles are evil, but that's another conversation.
Yeah. I'll talk to you off there on that one too. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I gotta walk that back. Not evil, but not what they seem. Not what they seemed to be. Yeah. Okay.
Very true. Well, I'll wrap things up. And if you got like 2 minutes, I'll talk to you off the air.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Celia. Again, I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, John.
All right. Well, folks, if you missed any of that, shame on you. Please check this out. And I always recommend the previous editions of Celia and I's conversations as well. Just, they say with food, it's vitamin rich. I think this is nutrient rich in a different form. The mental nutrient, I think, is what we can always take away from these wonderful conversations. As I always say, you can't do everything, but you can do something. So please try to get out there and do your part. Until next time, I'll be seeing you sooner than later in the Anomic Age.
Thank you for listening to The Anomic Age, a John Age project. For past shows, further info, and to comment, go to anomicage.com. That's ANOMICAGE.com. Till next time, thank you for listening to The Anomic Age.